The candles flickered weakly against the chill, 65 tiny flames dancing over the uneven frosting of a grocery store cake. It was supposed to be a birthday celebration, my birthday, but something about the air felt too polished, too rehearsed. My son, Blaine, stood at the head of the table, glass raised high, his smile practiced and confident, the kind of smile that looked good in boardroom photos. "To Mom," he said warmly, "for everything she's done for us. I just want her to know how happy I am that she loves the apartment I got her. Cozy, quiet, safe. She deserves that comfort." The guests clapped softly, just family, a few neighbors, and Celine, my daughter, who didn't even pretend to smile. Her manicured fingers traced lazy circles around the rim of her wineglass. I nodded, forcing a polite smile. It was easier that way, easier to pretend gratitude than to explain the truth. When the applause faded, Blaine leaned toward me, that bright grin still shining. "So, Mom," he asked, "you've been enjoying the apartment, right? Everything working fine? The heating, the kitchen, the view?" His words landed like stones in my chest. The view. My view was a cracked concrete wall and the back tires of the car I once owned. I hesitated. Celine's eyes lifted sharply, a warning. She wanted me to smile, nod, play my part, like always. But something in me broke that night. Maybe it was the candles, maybe the ache of too many lies. I looked at my son, my voice barely above a whisper. "Son," I said, "I live in the garage." The room froze. The sound of the refrigerator hum suddenly felt deafening. Celine's glass slipped from her hand, shattering across the floor. A dark stream of red wine spread across the tile like blood finding its shape. Blaine blinked, his confident expression collapsing into confusion. "What?" "I live in the garage," I repeated quietly, my throat tightening. "Not the apartment, the garage." For a moment, no one moved. Then Blaine let out a small laugh, the nervous kind. "You mean the garage apartment, right? The converted one, with the kitchenette?" I shook my head slowly. "There's no kitchen, Blaine, just a hot plate and a space heater that barely works." His smile disappeared entirely. He looked to Celine, waiting for her to correct me, to make it all make sense. Celine's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her silence said everything. Blaine's voice broke through the tension, soft but sharp. "How long have you known?" Celine's gaze dropped to the spilled wine, her lips trembling. "Blaine, please, not here." He stood up, the chair scraping loudly across the floor. "How long have you known she's been living like this?" She didn't answer. I stared at the candles still flickering on the cake, their tiny lights fighting the heavy air. It was my birthday, and for the first time in years I'd given myself a gift, the truth. But as I looked at my children, one in disbelief, one in guilt, I realized that the truth wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. 3 years. That's how long I'd been telling myself I was lucky. Lucky to have a roof. Lucky to have a son successful enough to set me up. Lucky, even as I fell asleep to the rattle of wind through the cracks of a garage door that didn't quite close all the way. The space was small, 8 steps from cot to curtain, 3 from sink to hot plate. The smell of motor oil never left, no matter how many candles I burned. When winter came, I'd tuck my feet into a wool blanket older than Blaine himself, press my hands to the space heater, and whisper to myself, "Don't complain, he did his best." Every month, my daughter Celine would stop by. Sharp perfume, expensive coat. A clipboard in hand, like I was one of her clients. She'd bring paperwork to sign, updates to keep things organized. She was always busy, always in control. "Mom, you're comfortable here, right?" "Of course, dear, it's perfect." The lie rolled off my tongue so easily it scared me. Because the truth, that I lived among paint cans and old lawn tools, would only make her sigh, would make Blaine worry. And if there was one thing I couldn't stand, it was the thought of being a burden. When Blaine called, his voice was always full of warmth. "You like the new place, Mom?" The realtor said it had that cozy charm. "It's lovely, sweetheart," I'd say, even as I brushed frost off the inside of the window. He believed I was living in a renovated in-law suite, separate from the main house but comfortable. A little haven for her retirement. That's how Celine had described it when she managed the purchase for him. I never questioned it. I didn't want to. Gratitude, I thought, was safer than curiosity. But the truth has a way of slipping through cracks, just like the wind under that old garage door. One night, long after I'd blown out my single reading lamp, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new message, accidentally forwarded from Blaine. The subject line read, "Beneficiary POA mismatch, urgent clarification." I didn't understand much of it, but I recognized my own name among the list of financial notes, beside phrases like trust fund authorization and elder care LLC. Attached was his short reply to Celine. "Why is Mom's name listed under 2 different accounts? Did you authorize this?" I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Power of attorney, beneficiary mismatch. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew how it felt. Cold, like the air that seeped through every gap in these thin walls. When I finally turned off the phone, my reflection in the dark window looked smaller than I remembered. A woman who'd traded truth for peace and ended up with neither. And somewhere across town, my son read that same email again and started to wonder. The morning after the birthday dinner, Blaine sat at his glass desk, surrounded by neat stacks of invoices, all bearing the same heading: Property, Holloway Residence, Care and Maintenance. He'd seen these before, every month for 3 years, but never looked too closely. Until now. He flipped through them one by one, his eyes tracing numbers that suddenly didn't add up. Heating, $418.23 per month. Grocery deliveries, $200. Landscaping, $600 for weekly upkeep. It didn't make sense. His mother's garage apartment was supposed to be tiny, efficient. Yet these were the bills of a 4-bedroom house with central air and manicured lawns. He clicked open the latest statement and frowned. The address was right. The receipts were itemized, full of high-end items: imported olive oil, artisan bread, fresh-cut flowers. Everything Mom would never buy for herself. He grabbed his phone and called her. "Hey, Mom," he said casually, trying not to sound alarmed. "Just checking in. How's the heating working these days?" "Oh, the little heater?" she said brightly. "It hums all night. Poor thing's doing its best." "You mean the central heating?" "Central?" She laughed softly. "No, sweetheart, just my space heater and a few blankets. It's plenty for me." Blaine stared at the 418 line item on his screen. "Plenty," she'd said. He closed his eyes for a moment. "And groceries? You still getting those deliveries?" "Deliveries?" She chuckled again, embarrassed. "Oh no, dear. I just walk to the corner store when I need soup or oatmeal. It's good exercise." He ended the call slowly, letting her cheerful tone echo in the silence of his office. His throat felt dry. That's when he called Celine. She answered on speaker, her voice smooth and composed. "Blaine, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait?" "It's about Mom's expenses." "Oh, that again." She sighed audibly. "Mom's fine. She likes simple living. She doesn't use much, so I've been managing everything for her." "Simple living?" he repeated. "Then why am I paying for luxury groceries and landscaping?" "You know how contractors inflate prices. Besides, that house needs upkeep, even if she doesn't use every service." "The garage apartment," he corrected quietly. "Right, the garage apartment," she said, her tone tightening. When the call ended, Blaine turned to his monitor. His company used smart systems, thermostats, cameras, motion sensors, on all properties. It was a habit born of efficiency. He opened the property dashboard. Average occupancy, 4%. Temperature logs, steady at 46 degree Kelvin for weeks. Motion activity, nearly zero inside the garage. But the main house, its thermostat showed perfect comfort, 72 degrees, occupied daily. Blaine leaned back in his chair, staring at the data. 1,000 quiet clues, all harmless alone. Little paper cuts of deceit. But together, they bled into something far darker. He clicked Request Detailed Access Logs and set the time frame for 3 years. Whatever this was, it wasn't just mismanagement anymore. It was a pattern. And Blaine Holloway was done being kept in the dark. The email from the monitoring service arrived just after midnight. Access logs, Holloway property, 3-year history. Blaine clicked it open, expecting a few dry numbers. What he found instead was a map of truth, cold, precise, undeniable. The thermostat history came first, 3 winters in neat blue graphs. The main house, warm and steady, between 70 and 74 degrees, occupied almost every night. The garage apartment, erratic spikes, short bursts of heat at midnight, then hours of freezing silence. He scrolled further. Door cam activity. Front door opened nightly between 7 and 11 p.m. Back door unlocked early mornings around 6:40 a.m. Garage door triggered less than a dozen times in an entire year. He stared at the timestamps. Whoever lived in that main house had a rhythm, a life. Whoever stayed in the garage, his mother, had isolation. Then came the grocery data. His mother's name appeared on every receipt. Organic salmon, imported cheeses, fresh fruit, fresh flowers, none of which she'd ever mentioned. Every delivery marked "Leave at front porch." Every signature matched one person, Celine. Blaine's stomach tightened. He opened another file, flagged invoices from HR, courtesy of his assistant Tara. Her message sat at the top of the screen. Subject, unusual vendor pattern. Sir, our audit software caught some overlapping EINs. Suncrest Elder Support and Harborview Mobility trace back to the same LLC, registered under S. Holloway Management. S. Holloway, his sister's maiden name. Blaine's jaw clenched. The documents were no longer abstract figures. They were fingerprints. He leaned back, staring at the glowing screen. His reflection in the monitor looked like a stranger. A man who'd built empires, negotiated mergers worth millions, but somehow missed the quiet theft of his own mother's dignity. He closed the laptop, grabbed his keys, and headed for the door. The night air hit sharp and cold as he drove through the sleeping city, past storefronts and blinking streetlights, until the familiar outline of the family home rose ahead, the house that was supposed to be hers. From the car, he could see everything the data had already told him. The main house glowed gold from within, curtains drawn, shadows moving. The garage behind it sat in darkness, a single dull light flickering near the window. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, the truth pressing in from all sides. Then he picked up his phone. "Celine," he said evenly, "we need to talk." "Blaine, it's midnight." "Then clear your morning." He ended the call and dialed another number. "Mom," he said softly when she answered, "can you do me a favor? Don't make plans tomorrow. I'm coming by." "Of course, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm and unsuspecting. "Should I make coffee?" He stared at the glowing house one last time. "Yes, Mom," he murmured. "Make coffee, we'll need it." Tomorrow the numbers would have faces, and the lies would have nowhere left to hide. Celine returned carrying a white binder thick with papers, the kind of binder meant to look professional and convincing. She set it down on the dining table with a loud, deliberate thud, a sound that said, "Here's your proof." "There," she said briskly. "Every expense tied to Mom's care. You'll see everything's in order." Blaine flipped open the cover. The pages were neatly organized with colored tabs. Repairs, medical, groceries, maintenance. Each section brimming with invoices, official logos, signatures, even stamped paid marks. On the surface, it looked flawless, but Blaine had spent 20 years reading contracts and financial statements. The more perfect something looked, the more likely it was a lie. He began scanning line by line. Suncrest Elder Support, LLC. Weekly nurse visits, $275 each. Harborview Mobility Services. In-home physical therapy, $400. Senior Safe Renovations. Structural upgrades for elder accessibility, $6,800. Daily Essentials Delivery. Premium groceries and supplies, $150. All under his mother's name. He turned the binder toward her. "Mom, do you recognize any of these companies?" I leaned in slowly, the paper trembling faintly in my hands. The names meant nothing. "No," I said softly. "I've never seen them." "They've been billing us every month for 3 years." My voice caught. "For what?" "Therapy, nurse visits, renovations, things you never had." My stomach twisted. For years I'd thought maybe my memory was fading, that I was the one losing track. But this was deliberate. Celine crossed her arms, the calm slipping from her tone. "Do you have any idea how much work it takes to manage a property and an elderly parent at the same time? These things don't organize themselves." Blaine ignored her and typed one of the company names into his laptop. A government EIN search window popped up. He entered Suncrest Elder Support, LLC, hit search. The screen loaded. Registered agent, S. Holloway Management. Founder, Celine Holloway Chen. His jaw clenched. "You created the company." Celine's lips pressed tight. "It's just a management umbrella, Blaine. Everything's legitimate." But his eyes were already on the next tab. Legal documents. Behind the neatly clipped invoices sat a small folder marked POA, Authorization. He opened it. The first page stopped him cold. Power of Attorney, Janine Holloway. A photocopied signature scrawled across the bottom. My name. But wrong. The loops too high, the ink too smooth, the small heart I always drew above the I missing. I felt my breath catch, my hands going cold. "That's not mine." Blaine didn't look up. His voice came out low, controlled. "It's dated 2 months before I transferred her property into the trust. This is what gave you access to everything." "Blaine, listen to me," Celine said, quickly, her tone shifting to panic. "Mom agreed. She just doesn't remember signing it. It was for convenience." "Convenience?" he snapped. "You forged our mother's signature." The silence that followed was thick, almost physical. I could hear my heart pounding, every beat louder than the last. The truth wasn't blurry anymore. It wasn't confusion or miscommunication. It was theft, dressed up in family titles and legal paper. I looked at my daughter, the same child whose scraped knees I once kissed, whose tears I'd once wiped away, and felt something inside me break. The lie had a name now, and it lived right in front of me. The call came the next morning, crisp and formal. "This is David Patel, Compliance Division at Sterling Federal. Mr. Holloway, we've identified irregular transactions related to your mother's trust." Blaine sat in his office, city skyline glinting behind him, laptop open to columns of numbers that suddenly looked more personal than any corporate report he'd ever read. "What kind of irregularities?" he asked. "Patterns typical of elder care structuring," Patel replied. "Frequent payments to multiple small vendors tied to the same EIN. Also, large transfers initiated under a power of attorney, not by the account holder herself." Blaine's jaw tightened. The POA was forged. "Then we'll need the beneficiary's formal statement to act," Patel said gently. "Without it, the law treats the document as valid." Blaine exhaled, the weight of the past week pressing against his chest. "I'll bring her in today." The bank was quiet, sterile, almost too clean. I sat beside my son at a small oak desk, while the young man in the suit, Mr. Patel, slid a folder toward me. "Mrs. Holloway," he said kindly, "we've reviewed your financial activity and found that someone's been managing your assets under an authorization that doesn't appear genuine. I'll explain, and then I'll need your signature to confirm that you never granted that authority." He turned the document around. My name was printed at the top, neat and sharp. Beneath it, a signature pretending to be mine. The strokes were confident, too confident. The loops were wrong, too tall, too straight. "That's not me," I whispered. "I always add a heart over the I. My husband used to tease me about it." Patel smiled softly. "Then that small detail might be the thing that saves your account." He explained the transfers, small withdrawals routed through shell companies, payments to nursing staff that never existed, care upgrades that never happened. It wasn't just theft, it was a design, a system built to bleed slowly, quietly. I listened, feeling the weight of years collapse into clarity. Every cold night, every apology I made for being a burden, every time I thanked my daughter for handling things, it all narrowed down to one truth. She had handled me. Patel's voice softened. "Mrs. Holloway, to proceed, we need a signed declaration stating this signature isn't yours. That gives us the legal grounds to freeze all related accounts." I looked at the pen resting in front of me. For years, my signature had been a symbol of surrender, signing whatever was placed in front of me, trusting that my children knew best. Blaine started to speak. "Mom, we can do this later if—" I interrupted him. My voice was steady for the first time in a long while. "No, we do it now." I picked up the pen, pressed it to the paper, and signed my name, heart over the I, exactly as I always had. "Tell me what to sign next," I said quietly. Patel nodded with respect. "That's all we need, Mrs. Holloway. From here, the system will start protecting you, not the other way around." For the first time in years, I felt something close to warmth that didn't come from a space heater. It came from taking my name back. The house was silent when they gathered, the kind of silence that feels alive, waiting to be broken. Celine sat at the dining table, arms folded, jaw tight. Blaine stood near the window, sleeves rolled up. the banker's folder still in his hand. I stayed by the doorway, my palms damp, heart thudding slow and heavy. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Blaine said quietly, "The bank confirmed it. They've frozen every account linked to your companies." Celine's head snapped up. "You had no right." He didn't answer, just placed the folder on the table. Papers fanned out like evidence in a crime drama. Fake invoices, POA copies, company registrations, her trail in black and white. "You forged Mom's name," he said, voice steady. "You built shell businesses under hers. You used her money to live in her house while she froze in the garage." Celine laughed softly, brittle and disbelieving. "You make it sound malicious. I protected her. She couldn't handle the paperwork, the stress." "Protected me?" I interrupted. My voice surprised even me. "You protected your comfort. I lived with mold in the walls while you drank wine by the fireplace." Her expression hardened. "You chose that, Mom. You said you liked it simple." "Because you told me the main house was under renovation," I said. "You said you were managing things, not stealing them." The words came faster now, sharper, each one slicing through the years of politeness I'd used to survive. "You let me sleep beside a leaking wall while you charged him for home care. You used my name to buy yourself flowers. I saw them in the kitchen vase, lilies, my lilies. You even used my blanket." Celine flinched. "You're twisting everything. I did what I had to. Blaine never visits. You never ask for help. Someone had to take control." Blaine turned, his expression unreadable. "Control," he repeated. "That's what this was about. Not care, control." His voice broke slightly as he continued. "Do you know how many calls I left on your voicemail asking to talk to her? How many gifts I sent that she never received? You intercepted every message, every delivery, every check. You built walls around her and called them systems." Celine rose from her chair, voice trembling with anger. "You don't understand. She's fragile. She always has been. I kept things running." "You kept me invisible," I said softly, "and you almost succeeded." The air felt electric, the truth finally stretching its arms after years of suffocation. Blaine's phone buzzed on the table, the sound sharp in the silence. He glanced down, a message from the lawyer. "All accounts frozen, forensic review underway, POA formally suspended." He exhaled, relief and heartbreak tangled in the same breath. "It's done," he said. Celine's face drained of color. "You went to the police." "To the truth," Blaine replied. "It doesn't need permission." She sank back into her chair, eyes glassy, denial crumbling at the edges. I stepped closer, voice trembling but strong. "You took everything I had, Celine, but you can't take my name. I've signed it back." Outside, the wind shifted, soft, cool, clean. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel haunted by silence. It felt like something else had finally moved in. Justice. The next morning, the lawyer arrived, a tall, calm man with a tablet tucked under one arm and the kind of precision in his voice that made every word feel like a verdict. He didn't waste time on small talk. Instead, he connected his tablet to the big TV in Blaine's living room. Within seconds, the screen filled with images. Dozens of photos Celine had sent, over the years as proof that I was living comfortably. "There's something I want you to notice," he said, enlarging one image. It showed a spotless kitchen, marble counters, soft lighting, a vase of flowers. The caption in Celine's email had read, "Mom's place looks great after upgrades." Then the lawyer opened the photo's data overlay. Lines of code filled the screen. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, metadata strings. According to the EXIF data, he continued, this picture wasn't taken at your mother's property. He zoomed in on the coordinates and opened a map. It was taken in a furniture showroom, the same one Celine's company made purchases from that year. Blaine's jaw tightened. You staged the photos? Celine's voice came out small. They were examples, just for presentation. I wanted things to look good for reports. He clicked another photo, the living room, Mom's cozy space, complete with framed family pictures. This one, the lawyer asked. Her silence was answer enough. The next file wasn't a photo, it was a video clip from the doorcam logs Blaine had requested. Timestamp 10:47 p.m., 3 nights before. The footage played on screen. There was Celine stepping out of the main house in slippers, robe tied tight, trash bag in hand. She paused to lock the door behind her before walking toward her car. Then another clip, same night, 2 hours later. Food delivery driver drops off 2 paper bags labeled with Celine's name. Main house, front porch. The garage door camera remained dark, no motion detected. So, the lawyer said evenly, we have photos from a furniture showroom, delivery footage showing Celine residing at the main house, and payment records indicating those same services were billed to Mr. Holloway's accounts as elder care. He turned to her. Would you like to explain this pattern? Celine's mouth opened and closed. For once, the practiced poise was gone. The calm, managerial tone had vanished. What came out instead was panic. You can't destroy family over money, she cried, voice rising. Everything I did was for order, to keep things balanced. Mom didn't need all that space. She was fine where she was. Blaine's voice was low, controlled, more dangerous than shouting. You call theft balance. It wasn't theft, she snapped. It was management. I kept everything running. I stood up then, my hands trembling, but steady enough to point at the screen. You kept me in a garage while you lived in my house, I said quietly. You called it management. I call it cruelty. Her face contorted, denial, fear, then a flicker of something like shame. You can't just erase me from this family, she whispered. Blaine met her eyes, voice cold as steel. You erased yourself when you forged her name. The lawyer closed his tablet and gathered the documents. We'll move forward with the charges. The evidence speaks for itself. Celine sank into the chair, her mask cracked beyond repair, not just caught, but exposed. The screen went black, but the silence it left behind said everything. The truth had gone digital, and it was undeniable. The house felt impossibly quiet after Celine left, the kind of silence that didn't settle but echoed. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Across from me, Blaine stared at the evidence folder as though it might start explaining itself. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he broke the silence. The lawyer says you'll have to testify, he said softly. They'll need your statement to press charges formally. The words felt heavy, foreign. Testify. It sounded like something brave people did, not old women who'd spent 3 years pretending the cold didn't bother them. I don't know if I can, I whispered. It's one thing to speak here, but in court, against my own daughter. Blaine leaned forward, voice trembling just slightly. Mom, she didn't just hurt you. She built a system around your silence. You can break it, not just for yourself, but for everyone she might have done this to. He looked so much like his father in that moment, calm, steady, kind, that something inside me cracked open. I spent my whole life believing that love meant keeping peace, I said, that if I stayed quiet, things would stay whole. He nodded slowly. I did too. I looked at him, surprised. You? He smiled sadly. You taught me not to worry you, so I didn't. I stayed silent when I should have asked questions. I believed being a good son meant not doubting my sister. Our eyes met, two people finally seeing the cost of their shared lesson. We both believed silence was love, I said softly. And now we know it's not, he replied. The clock ticked quietly between us, marking the end of one pattern and the start of something new. I took a deep breath and reached for the pen the lawyer had left on the table. My hand trembled as I signed the preliminary statement, a few lines that would start a process much bigger than either of us could stop. When the ink dried, something inside me did too. The trembling, the guilt, the hesitation. For the first time in years, I felt steady. Blaine exhaled, almost like he'd been holding his breath for years. You did the right thing, Mom. I know, I said quietly, but it shouldn't have taken this long to remember what right feels like. As if on cue, the phone rang. Blaine picked it up. His face shifted, tense, then relieved. He handed me the receiver. Detective Ward, a voice said on the other end. Mrs. Holloway, I wanted to let you know. The subpoenas were approved. The investigation is moving forward. I thanked him, my voice barely audible. When I hung up, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. Outside, morning light spilled through the window, real, warm, open. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of being heard. Justice didn't come like thunder. It came like morning light, quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. The days that followed moved in a blur of phone calls, signatures, and quiet reckonings. Auditors combed through records, tracing every payment, every fabricated invoice, every forged document that carried my name. The house, my house, filled not with family laughter this time, but with the low murmur of legal voices and the rustle of manila folders. I watched from the kitchen table as Blaine coordinated with investigators. His calm efficiency reminded me of how he handled million-dollar deals, except now the stakes weren't business, they were blood. By the end of the week, the truth had shape. The fake companies, the diverted accounts, the forged power of attorney, all neatly documented. Every oversight Celine had brushed off became a pattern of deliberate exploitation. When the sheriff's car pulled up outside, I didn't move. I heard the crunch of gravel, the muted knock on the door, and then Celine's sharp intake of breath. She stood in the doorway, hair disheveled, eyes rimmed red. For once, she looked small, stripped of her confidence and control. The officer handed her the envelope. This is a notice of investigation, Ms. Chen. You've been named in a financial exploitation case under state elder protection statutes. Her voice broke into a ragged scream. You can't do this. You're ruining our family over money. I rose from my chair, each step steady. My voice, when it came, was soft, but it carried weight. Family doesn't ruin family over money, I said. Family doesn't starve its own. Celine turned toward me, her eyes wild. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting your lifestyle, I said. You forgot that love isn't measured in control. Blaine stepped forward, calm but resolute. The power of attorneys already voided. You'll have to surrender all access to Mom's assets immediately. Celine's lips trembled. You're choosing her over me." He looked at her for a long moment, a lifetime of betrayal, guilt, and grief reflected in his eyes. "I'm choosing truth over lies," he said quietly. "That's what she deserves, what we both do." The sheriff guided Celine to the porch while she continued protesting, her voice breaking between disbelief and rage. "You'll regret this. You'll both regret this." The door shut softly behind her, and the house, my house, exhaled. For the first time in years, it belonged to peace. Blaine sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. "It's over," he said, half to himself. "Finally." I looked around at the walls, the photos, the sunlight stretching across the floorboards. "No," I said gently. "It's beginning." He smiled faintly, understanding. Outside, the sheriff's car pulled away. Through the window, I could see Celine on the curb, still arguing. Into her phone, but smaller now, her power reduced to noise that couldn't reach us anymore. I turned to Blaine. "You did what I couldn't do for years," I said. "You saw the truth and didn't look away." He shook his head. "No, Mom, you did. You finally spoke." I reached for his hand, feeling the tremor fade from both of ours. The woman who once lived in silence had found her voice, and the gatekeeper who guarded her pain was finally gone. The storm passed, but its echo lingered. Weeks turned into months, each day a quiet act of rebuilding, not just my finances, but my boundaries. The court proceedings were straightforward, at least on paper. Celine faced charges for financial exploitation, fraud, and forgery. Her plea deal included restitution, every dollar stolen returned, every false account dissolved. She was barred by court order from managing anyone's finances, mine or anyone else's, ever again. It wasn't revenge, it was prevention. The judge's words stayed with me. Control disguised as care is still control. Afterward, Blaine and I sat in his office, reviewing what came next. He insisted on creating a transparent system. Every bill, every transfer, every health expense, automatically visible to both of us. "No middlemen," he said gently, "just you and me." It felt strange at first, seeing the numbers, the details, the kind of truth I'd spent decades avoiding. I'd grown used to invisibility, to quietly trusting that others knew best. But this time I read every line. I asked questions. I learned. And for the first time, I didn't apologize for doing so. I remember one afternoon when Blaine showed me a new proposal, a private nurse service that could check on me twice a week. "It's all set up," he said. "They'll start Monday." The old me would have smiled and said thank you, but the woman I was becoming paused. "No, son," I said softly. "Let's wait. I'd like to meet them first. Then I'll decide." He blinked, surprised, then smiled. "That's fair." That single word, no, felt like the strongest thing I'd said in years. Not angry, not defensive, just certain. Therapy helped too. Blaine suggested it, and for once I agreed. I met with a counselor who specialized in elder abuse recovery, a calm woman with silver hair and the patience of someone who'd seen too many stories like mine. "Forgiveness isn't permission," she told me. "It's releasing yourself from the story they trapped you in." I didn't forgive Celine, not yet, maybe not ever, but I stopped carrying her weight. One small act at a time, I learned new rules for myself. If something feels wrong, I name it. If someone crosses a line, I draw it back in ink, not pencil. If love comes with strings, I cut them. The biggest change came in how I viewed help. For years, I thought independence meant refusing it. Now I understood, healthy help comes with respect, not control. Blaine saw it too. He stopped trying to fix everything and started listening more. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes we just shared quiet meals without needing to fill the silence. The house, my house, finally felt like a home again. Not because it was warm or well lit, but because I no longer felt like a guest in my own life. Boundaries weren't walls anymore. They were windows, letting in light, but keeping these cold out. Morning sunlight poured through the new kitchen windows, golden and warm. The kind of light I used to dream about during those long, cold nights in the garage. Now it touched everything gently. The clay pots lined along the sill, the little basil plant stretching toward the sun, the worn wooden spoon in my hand. I wasn't rushing anymore. I stirred my tea slowly, breathing in the scent of mint and rosemary. The house was quiet, but not empty. It felt alive. On the counter sat a flyer, Community Workshop, protecting seniors from financial fraud. In one corner, my name was printed neatly, Speaker Janine Holloway. Every Tuesday, I volunteered at the senior center downtown, sitting with men and women who carried the same mixture of fear and pride I once did. I taught them how to read bank statements, how to verify emails, and what I called the 3 red flags. When love comes with control, when help means silence, when comfort feels like isolation. At first, my hands would shake every time I spoke, but week after week, the tremble turned into steadiness. I wasn't just telling my story anymore, I was reclaiming it. After class, I'd sometimes stay behind to water the small herb garden outside the center. The other volunteers teased me for talking to the plants, but I knew better. Growth listens when you speak kindly to it. Later that day, Blaine stopped by with groceries and a smile that didn't need to hide behind success. He hugged me, looked around, and said, "You really made this place your own." "I did," I said, smiling back. Took me a lifetime, but I finally learned to live in my own story. He helped me unpack, and before leaving, he paused by the window. "You know," he said quietly, "when I bought this place for you, I thought I was giving you comfort, but what you built here, this is peace." When he left, I stood there for a moment, the afternoon breeze moving through the open window, carrying the faint scent of lavender. Peace. It had a sound, I realized. It sounded like silence that didn't hurt. As the sun began to set, I sat by the window with my notebook, something my therapist had encouraged me to keep. I flipped to the first page and read my own handwriting. On my 65th birthday, I wished for something simple, light. Now I added the final line. On my birthday, I wished for windows, and I got boundaries too. Outside, the world was soft and golden. A piano played faintly from the radio, slow, steady, beautiful. I closed the notebook, took one last sip of tea, and looked out through the glass at the garden blooming in the yard. Herbs, flowers, and something far rarer, freedom.